So, Salesforce rolled out Chatter about 2 years ago, and really, I think most of you guys know Chatter is essentially Salesforce's social enterprise engine, where basically it's a tool to help you collaborate with your users inside of Salesforce on either records that are in Salesforce or various topics within Salesforce. And over the couple of years and multiple releases that Salesforce has rolled out, it's been an extremely heavy focus by them to continue improving Chatter, and it's really become a critical application within inside of Salesforce, and it's associated with almost every aspect of Salesforce right now. And to be honest, it's only going to get deeper and deeper. So we're going to walk through a quick high-level overview of it and just sort of talk about Chatter. For those of you guys that have been using Salesforce for a while, this might be a little bit redundant for stuff you know, but then we're going to go right into the best practices from there. So first, basically Chatter has its own tab, so think of it like a feed, similar to your Twitter feed or even your Facebook activity, where you can see all the information that you're following in Chatter in one section. So right here, you'll see a simple feed where you can see different records that I'm following and stuff that's happened to those records. You can see information that people are posting to groups, and I'll discuss that in a second. And you can see some conversations going back and forth over different various Chatter streams. So this feed is really sort of the hub of how the information in the Chatter data is getting broadcasted to you. And from here, you can do some filtering of I want to just show things that I follow. I want to just see Chatter stuff that's addressed to me. So if I click this, these are the ones that are just directly aimed at me as a user. And maybe things that I bookmarked, the entire company. Maybe I just want to look at different people. So right from here, I can look at all the people in my org that I can follow or not following. And you can see here, which people I'm following. And we'll talk about best practices, how this is a really good way to follow experts or topic leaders within your company to get valuable data. And we'll talk about that in a minute. And you can also look at groups and different files right from here. So some filter stuff. And then in addition, Salesforce over here, by the recommendations, will provide sort of people that maybe you want to follow. Maybe they're trending different topics that are interesting to you, and basically good suggestions on people you might want to follow. So this is initially, essentially the core stream. And from here, you can also participate. So that's my Chatter desktop that just popped up, and I'll talk about that in a sec. So from here, you can also show, basically participate in different Chatter streams. So if you wanted to post something, so basically, our spring 13 fashion line is going great. I basically share that, and that would be broadcast onto the feed, and anybody that's following me would be able to see that, and then also provide comments. And what you just saw in that pop-up before was Mike Jones basically posting a Chatter that immediately updated, and I would be able to, if I wanted to, comment on that. Looks great, or provide more information there. So you're able to broadcast these different changes, and there's different types of chatters that you can share. So I just did a simple post here, and you'll see just similar to Twitter, you can use a hashtag to basically trend a topic. And this is a little bit of a demo environment of ours, so you'll see right here one of our trending topics is Spring 13. So a lot of activities going around in Chatter about this topic. So you can just click into it, similar to Twitter, and you'd be able to see all of the individual Chatter posts about this topic. So you can see, basically there's been 5 that we've been talking about, all about this new fashion line that's coming out. So I go back to my stream, and you can see the different types of things you can share. So I can share a file, and if I want to upload something like maybe a PowerPoint deck or a Word document, I can upload that right from my computer. But if you're using Salesforce content, you can also grab a file right out of content. So if I wanted to go, all right, here's the color palette for the spring line. I attach that in. I can make a comment. And then I share. And then everybody that's following me would basically see this file come through. And you can see certain file types, they're actually going to show you a preview, right? So this is a JPEG, so it's automatically going to show you a preview of what's right there, so you can see it in the stream. Same if you show like a YouTube video link, it will actually show a preview of the movie. And you'll see that a little bit down here as an example of that as well. So some of these things in the feed are actually showing previews of what you're seeing. So right here, you can see, we have the spring-summer 2013 advertising campaign here as a video that you can preview. So different types of things you can do. And one of the other ones, which is a newer feature, is you can also put in polls, right? So if you wanted to do, what is your favorite color? Red, green, blue. Click share. And now you have a poll that's inside your feed. And you can have your users voting on different items and stuff like that. So a good way to sort of kick off collaboration, and we'll talk about that in a moment as well. So those are the different types of feeds you can do. And everything I've been doing here has been basically just broadcast out to my general followers. So you can also target specific people. So if I wanted to target Lisa Stewart over here, basically we just start typing, typing her name out. My typing is not ideal. Share. And now that is actually targeted right at her. So this would also, is a good way to sort of broadcast to different people, and you could put in multiple different users in a single stream. So you don't have to just keep broadcasting to everybody. You can send specific notes out or chatters out to individuals. And then, what I'm showing here is also the main chatter stream. One of the really great things about what Salesforce did with chatter is it embedded this on every single record within Salesforce. So if I go into an individual opportunity, there's also a chatter stream just for this opportunity. So if I click hide, you're going to see here's the standard opportunity, and then I can show the feed. And here's all the collaboration that's happening just on this opportunity. So if I wanted to ask somebody a question specific to this opportunity, I could do it right here in this feed instead of doing it on the chatter stream itself. And what's going to happen here is anybody that's following this opportunity, so you can see the followers, and right now I'm the only one following it. You can tell from my very sensible shoes there that this is my user. That only those followers will actually receive that. So there's ways, so individuals can follow a record that they're interested in. And so this is like sort of a really key feature where, unlike email, where with email, if you're going to try to get an update or you're trying to find out about a particular, say you're a manager and you're trying to find out about an opportunity that's happening, basically what you have to do is you have to essentially broadcast out an email to everybody that's involved and wait for them to, to reply. With chatter, you can just follow that record. And then any update that happens or any communication around that opportunity that your users are doing is going to be sent to you in your chatter feed automatically. So if you're very interested in an opportunity or maybe a high priority case that is a customer that you're concerned about, or you want to know when this case is resolved, you simply just have to follow that record, and then from there you're going to receive all updates about it. So it's a proactive way to receive all the notifications and updates about records or accounts or different data points inside of Salesforce, versus just having to keep reaching out over and over again, going, what's happening on this, what's happening on this. So. And then, you can also jump in and collaborate on it as well. So this is the feed. So basically 2 different areas. We have the chatter feed itself, and then you have the feed inside of the records. So that is sort of a little bit of a high-level overview of sort of where chatter is. And again, I wanted to go fast on that. So if we do have questions, I'll definitely address those at the end. But a couple other quick little things inside of the feeds, the cover and the overview. Then we're going to start talking best practices. So one of the things that happened recently in the latest release for Spring 13 is now on records, chatter now will link tasks. So previously you would have your tasks and like sort of things that I did, like I called this opportunity or I had a meeting with these people, and it would be in a different related list inside the activities versus inside the chatter feed. So now you can see something like this where if you create a task, it automatically appears in the feed, because this is an important thing to track of what's going on with this opportunity. So right from your record feed, I can create a new task. So add a call. So let's say schedule a call. And I set the due date out to the 29th. I click share. So now that call is right here in the feed. You can see it down here. Oh, if I hit refresh, you can see it down in the opportunity itself in the activity-related list. So there, it's right there. And then from here, I can actually even click into it, right? So now I'm in the activity. If I need to close that out, this just happens. now my activity's closed. So right out of that feed, I'm able to basically take care of my activity management. Now anybody that's following this record, and now you'll see we have another user actually following this, they will receive, see this come over their feed that I just had a call with this opportunity and know that something happened and be able to click into the call to see the details of what happened with that call. So basically, this feed is broadcasting all the pertinent information that's happening with that opportunity. So, from a task standpoint, that was a really nice integration that Salesforce did in the latest release. In addition, there's another action that you can do inside of Chatter, and that's approvals. So in this case, I have an opportunity that needs approvals if the opportunity is in negotiation and review. So basically, I need to submit this for approval because I have to get my discounting approved. And you're going to see right now the record's locked, and it's an approval. And you're going to see it's pending. So basically, if I go into my feed, I'm going to receive a Chatter request that I have to approve this opportunity. And without having to go into the opportunity, now maybe I just hover over it and I can see the information right here. Probably do need to look into it just to see whether it should be approved or not. But I can basically approve right in my Chatter feed. Hit OK. And now that's been approved right through your Chatter feed. And so, those are basically like Chatter actions that are occurring inside the feed. And I think this is, one of the things you're going to start seeing Salesforce do a little bit more of in the future is really start sort of embedding your day-to-day actions inside of those feeds as well. So your Chatter feed becomes a little bit more central and almost sort of becomes your home page. And Mark Benioff actually had a speech in Boston basically last week, and he did mention that this was something that he was going to be looking that Salesforce would be looking more to do is basically make this Chatter feed more central to the users, right? And easiest way to do that is to start embedding their different actions in there, like approvals, like being able to schedule tasks, like voting on on polls and stuff like that. So being able to move your actions through this is really one of the quickest ways to make this feed central. And so that's definitely a direction that Salesforce is going to be going. So that is a very high-level overview of Chatter. And one of the things we want to talk about here is some of the best practices of how to use Chatter effectively, and then also, how to roll it out if you're not using it today. So, Chatter being a collaboration engine and a way to really, collaborate on individual records and, collaborate with your team and, really be able to follow and track and proactively receive notifications on different things that's occurring. It's not the most obvious concept to users who haven't used this before, right? It's a hard thing to describe. If you're trying to explain to a sales rep or to a support user, yeah, you're going to be able to see a feed of everything that happens on your opportunity. They're going to look at you like, well, I already see that. I get that in all my email. So you really want to come up with sort of strategies of how to roll this out to really effectively use this and have the users sort of jump on board, because like a community, like anything social, this really doesn't work unless people are actually actively engaged both ways, right? So great example is if you're rolling out Chatter and you basically tell your sales team, like, look, we're going to have, you can post any single question that you want in Chatter, and you're going to have a sales engineer respond, or someone in marketing or someone in pricing be able to respond to your questions right away. And so instead of shooting an email to the product marketing team when you have a question about a product or a competitor, just put it in Chatter. So the sales guys are going to go, okay, great, and they're going to put a question on there. And if you don't actually have those experts, really like responding to that type of stuff, that's going to be the last time they ever put a Chatter in there to your product team. So you want to make sure that, like, especially early on, like the experiments that you're doing to roll out Chatter, that you have both sides engaged, right? And so what we tend to recommend is in those cases, like, don't do a huge big bang. Like, there's so many ways you can use Chatter. Don't do all of them at once, because you got to get your users sort of used to sort of the flow and posting and answering on both sides of Chatter before really the adoption will kick in. And then once that adoption kicks in, all these different things that we're going to talk about will just start coming naturally, right? Like people will just start to do it, and they'll start migrating in there. And overall, you're going to start seeing your email traffic drop. And all of our customers that we have, and all the people, other Salesforce instances that we've spoken to, and all the admins that we basically talk to on a regular basis, the ones that are really using Chatter, their email plummets, which is great because everything's now inside of Salesforce on the record, topical, and easy to find for all your users versus trying to look through emails for stuff that's not associated. But you're going to want to go a little bit slow and pick a few strategies that will really resonate with your team that you're rolling this out. So one of the couple of, we're going to go through a couple things that we see as, easy, quick wins that make sense for everybody. So first, we're going to talk about chatter groups. So what Salesforce has with chatter groups is basically a way to create a group about a specific topic that different users might be interested. So in this case, we have a group called the Spring 13 Preview. And so when I'm in here, basically this group is all about the Spring 13 product. And everybody in here is posting about this and sharing files or sharing polls or sharing information and progress and statuses, and they're all collaborating about this project there. And you can see all these different users are following this, right? So this group is about a specific topic, and everybody in here has an interest in this topic. And this group in particular, which is also sort of a different type of these groups, this is actually a group that we can share with our customers or our partners, right? So in this case, we have 2 customers, and Salesforce calls them customers. It doesn't have to be a customer. I mean, we see a lot of people doing this more with partners than customers, to be honest, but you can do it both ways. But basically, think of this customer as an outside user of Salesforce, so someone who doesn't have a Salesforce license with you, who's not part of your company. You can invite them to go into these groups and collaborate along with you, right? And so all they're able to see is the group that they're invited to, and they're able to post and share files and upload and links and upload stuff to this thing, and basically as if they're a normal user of Salesforce. So, like in this case, we're doing a Spring 13 line. Maybe we have an expert on different fashion lines about the spring, and they don't work for us, but they're an outside consultant, and we want them in here to be able to collaborate with us. So we can invite them in. And so this group basically just evolves and starts, basically sharing all information that's topical for that. So groups are a really nice way to sort of roll out an initial implementation of chatter, right? Because most people get the concept of groups. And what we see is a few really easy groups to share, and most companies struggle with this. So the first is to have a group about competitive information, right? So, a lot of companies that don't have this type of collaboration, it's a nightmare for their users to find out information about competitors, right? So, you have marketing who's doing all sort of, deep research into market share and competitor information and strengths and weaknesses. So they have all this pre-prepared, decks of, all right, here's how you attack competitor A, and here's how we attack competitor B. And so they have all that kind of pre-built content that they're constantly updating. So where do they put that for their sales team or their support team to be able to find, right? So a perfect place would be to have a group about that and have marketing share all that data inside the group. But at the same time, which is really where chatter kicks in, is like, all right, you can do that, and you can have marketing share that information. But to be honest, marketing can do that in a lot of places. They can do that in Dropbox. They could create a shared folder on your drive. It's easy for marketing to share their files and have sales go to those places. But then with competitive information, what if you have the power of all your if you have 100 users, what if you have all of your users actually contributing actively to that, right? So not only the pre-prepared stuff from marketing, but also throwing in a chatter like, hey, I just ran up against this competitor at this prospect, and here's what they pitched. They talked about some new pricing change that they have coming that it doesn't sound like marketing knows about yet. Or, hey, we're seeing this competitor is actually consistently raising their prices. Or, I've had really good luck actually attacking this competitor by going after this weakness. So suddenly your competitive group is no longer just, sort of a marketing focused attack where, it's pre-built stuff, but it's actually a collaborative approach where you're gathering information from all of your users in Salesforce. And, that benefits everybody. It benefits marketing because they're going to get, basically, feet on the ground to basically share all this information that they're dying to get anyway. And then, sales is able to talk about things. And, a really good example is, you could have that competitive group and you have a sales guy go, hey, I'm running into competitor C. Has anybody won a deal against them? If so, can you share the tips? And then you have another sales rep share the deck that he used and go, yep, I ran to them last week. Here's the deck that I used, and everything seemed positive. Customer really resonated with this, this, and this. So all that collaboration can take place within a group right there. So competitive information is one of those no-brainer type of groups where almost every company has competitors, and it's a very easy way to to make a strategy that people understand the use of chatter, and they're quickly going to realize like, hey, this is a really easy way to sort of to use chatter. Another good example of a group that we see often is around strategic accounts. So if you're a customer that has, if you're a company that has like 1 or 2 customers that are, very strategic to your company, right? Maybe they're one of your largest customers, or they're a really large prospect, and you have sales, obviously taking care of them, account management. Maybe you have like some customer success type of roles that are dealing with them. Customer support's probably involved. Maybe they have some cases that they're filing or issues. You might have marketing that wants them as a reference customer, so marketing is speaking to them. You have a lot of people in your organization dealing with these strategic accounts. You can just create a chatter group, like, let's talk about this customer, and share all these different information about the customer. You could also do that on the account, but it could be one of those like sort of attack plans of how do we go after this. So those are the type of things where you can very easily come up with a group that across the board your users will understand and really see the value of. So groups is one thing that we really try to come up with as part of a chatter rollout as a good way to start off. Another good one are experts. So we talked about marketing, and marketing tends to have all this market information and competitive information or industry-specific type of information. Sales engineers are another, where usually there's groups that your users are trying to get hold of or constantly peppering for information. And usually they're doing it by email, or they're calling them up, or they're just walking over to their cube and basically, for lack of a better word, disrupting what those guys are trying to do. So chatter is, and what happens with that is when they're sending an email and when they're walking over to the cube or they're calling. Well, if you have 50 sales reps, all 50 of them are doing that to the same people, and it's usually 50 against 5 or 50 against 3 sales engineers, and they're getting peppered from all directions. Well, if you put those experts into chatter and you have the sales reps actually ask the questions through chatter to them, as long as you have those experts responding in a timely manner to those questions, now all those questions are actually saved in Salesforce. So if I search for Spring 13, you're going to see, and then I look for feeds here, you're going to see all the different feeds that have occurred with those experts. Or if I do this in a chatter group, I'm going to see the whole history there that I can search. So now all that information, all those answers from those experts, they're actually being saved in your CRM. So any sales rep can actually search for that competitor name or that feature that they're looking for, or whatever type of data that they need that expert for. They can search for it first, and if they find the answer, they don't have to bother that person. And if they don't find the answer, they just chatter it, and then now that's there for everybody else to benefit from. And the other nice thing is by following. So if you have like these type of experts, and every company has those people that just know the answer to everything that sales just leans on. The salespeople can follow that person, right? So when they're answering these questions, they're also receiving these chatter feeds back to them because they're following that expert, and they're learning, they're basically learning stuff that maybe they didn't need, maybe that wasn't relevant to something they were doing today, but by seeing that chatter feed 2 weeks from now when that same issue hits them, they're going to be like, you know what? John was just talking about that 2 weeks ago with so-and-so. Let me go find out what he said there. So all that sort of information exchange is happening through chatter, and it's a really good way to sort of get users engaged with that. And one of the things, both things that we're talking about here, what we find is like the individual users, like if you're rolling this out to sales, you're rolling this out to support, the harder way to roll out chatter is to get them all just talking to each other right out of the gate, because they're not going to really understand the value, and there's going to be, they're all going to be almost shy about it. The easiest way to do this is to have those users be able to ask questions or try to get information, and you have designated groups that respond back to them, whether they're experts or marketing groups, or those type of things. And then once they see sort of that back and forth, and they start realizing, you know what, I'm getting a lot of value out of this, naturally then they're going to start actually, using chatter to start speaking to other users as well. So you really want to just sort of get them talking to, getting feedback and value from their experts first, and then they'll start using this thing across the board. So tying to that, one of the other areas that we see, and this is specific only to to your company if you have this model. Another popular area, especially once you've already rolled out chatter and you've already rolled out groups and you've already rolled out experts, is we see overlay teams being a very popular one as well. So if you're a company that has multiple sales teams that can be targeting the same account. Maybe you have an inside sales team that sells a transactional product, and then you have an account manager that manages that account once they become a customer, and they're supposed to own all aspects of what happens to there. And then maybe you have like a customer success person that's dealing with them on a quarterly basis to make sure their customer experience is going well. All those people really care about that account. And today, they're all interacting with that account, but not necessarily sharing what's happening with that account to the other people that care about it. So, an overlay team is a great way to do it, where you can just have an account, and as these experts, all three of them can follow it, as these people that care about those accounts uncover stuff. So like, hey, I just had a call with the decision maker, and it looks like he might be leaving the company. Or, they just hired 2 new people that are going to be, basically responsible for our project. We should set up a call. All of that information that they're sharing, like, which is critical for your customers, they can be sharing through Chatter. And so that sales guy, when he goes to go call that account, first thing he does is he looks at the feed and he sees if anything new is going on, right? And he goes, oh, all right, it looks like our CSM just had a call with them last week. So now he's going to go in there and know that we just actually spoke to them last week, and be able to have that information and go, hey, how'd the call go with the CSM? I mean, it sounds like it was a great call from what I heard, right? And then they sound like they're more informed and they have all that data at their disposal. So if your company has overlay group where multiple people are touching your customers, Chatter is an excellent way to collaborate and share information about what's going on with that account. So those are some of our big best practices on how to roll this out early on. Then once it's rolled out, basically it starts to take on a life of its own, and you're going to start seeing groups, people requesting more information, people chattering on records, and it just basically goes from there. And we're going to talk about some of the ways to extend it in a minute with some of the Appexchange apps. So along with sort of those initial implementation best practices, there's also some pure, sort of functional best practices that we want to talk about. So first is really using Chatter to share files. So if I go into the Chatter feed, we have, like right here, we saved this JPEG and threw it through Salesforce. Files are a great way to share information, right? Because this is the type of stuff that people are always having a hard time getting, right? So usually they're on someone's computer, they're on a shared drive somewhere. So combined with content, files, is a great way to share stuff, especially in a group or on an account. So, if I search for color, and I search the feed, I'm going to see this color palette show up right here. So you're going to be able to find that stuff in search. Very, very easy to surface those kind of files. And as I mentioned, you have the preview right here, or I can click into it and I go right to the content and go from there. So, using Chatter with content is an extremely powerful combination where, your groups can maintain their content and the different versions right here, and then, the Chatter post can go right to it, right? And you can put that topical to a group or topical to an account. Like if I just did a sales pitch to a customer, I can upload the PowerPoint deck right into my Chatter feed. If I'm a customer support rep and I just had a big call with the customer to onboard them, and they shared a bunch of schematics about their setup, and maybe they gave you some diagrams and all this information to help you with their setup, well, why not just upload that right to the account so that anybody else can sort of see that, and everybody else in support can see those schematics as well. So files are a really, really key thing to train your users on when you're rolling out Chatter, and it's a very good way to expand out the usage. We already talked about groups, and then we also discussed how to do private groups with customers. So this is a good way to extend Salesforce outside of your instance and be able to get outsiders collaborating with your users. In addition, Salesforce also gives you Chatter free seats that you can give to your entire organization outside of your normal Salesforce seats. So maybe you have like a CFO or somebody in finance or someone in a group that isn't really like a core Salesforce user. You can still give them a seat with your Chatter free licenses so that they can follow a group about competitors or followed information and see the feed from there. So just because someone doesn't have a Salesforce seat, you can still give them a Chatter seat, which helps expand out the usage and the adoption of it. And we have one example where there was an insurance company that had a doctor, and this doctor was sort of like almost like Dr. Oz, where he was a little bit of a celebrity, and when he visited hospitals and stuff, it was actually a very big deal. And so what they did was they just simply gave him a chatter seat, And he would chatter where he was at, so the sales reps would know that, oh, I visited this, the doctor visited this hospital, or the doctor's going to visit this hospital, and the sales reps would get that chatter feed. And just by knowing that this doctor visited that hospital, they would immediately call up and go, hey, how was it with the doctor? It gave those sales guys a great opportunity to talk to that customer and engage with that customer because they just had sort of a minor celebrity appear. So, those type of things are great usage where you can have people that aren't core Salesforce users. I mean, that doctor certainly wasn't looking at opportunities. He didn't really care about that stuff. He was just visiting out to different customers and, basically, sort of shaking hands and, talking about medical issues and all that type of stuff. But to a sales rep, he was a great tool to be able to engage the customers after he was there. And they need, without knowing that he had visited a hospital, that would have been a lost opportunity. So giving him a chatter seat was a huge benefit to that account. So things like that are ways to look at it. And then in particular, even internally, influencers, so people that have a lot of information about maybe product decisions or different directions that you're going to go. Those are people that you want to have inside of chatter, answering some questions and receiving the feedback from your users. So then another one is Chatter Desktop. So if I go and bring this up real quick. So Chatter Desktop, is basically a desktop app that shows chatter. So you're going to see this is pretty much exactly like the feed over here. And you're able to see things that occur as they happen. So right at the beginning of the presentation, we had a chatter pop up. So you're able to do sort of a preview of things that occur through chatter. So you can see it right here. You can see it sort of refreshing as it goes. And then you can look at different things here, like I want to see stuff that's aimed at me. Right from here, you can see even a dashboard was sent out, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. And then you can, go even into stuff like where you're chattering. You can use Chatter Messenger, which I'll talk about now. So in addition to the chatter feed in Chatter Desktop or here, you can essentially engage in chats with your users. So if they're online, you can basically just go, pop over here, and you can see that Adriana has sent me a chat about 50 jackets. And basically that just went over, that just went back to her, and now we're engaged in a chat. So very similar to Skype, but it's inside of Salesforce, and it's basically using Chatter to do that conversation. I can see that Adriana is replying back to me. Now the nice thing about this is, like I mentioned, very similar to Skype or IM, but this is actually inside of Salesforce, so it's searchable in Salesforce. So in 3 months from now, when I can't remember what Adriana told me about these jackets, I can actually search for that. For this chat that was there, and then find that inside of Salesforce, and remember that they were red ruby shoes. I guess that's a color, and so basically, that they'd come with 50 of them. So that's would be able to be found inside of Salesforce using just this universal search, which is obviously a big benefit. So when you start to see all this stuff pulled together, today your users to find this stuff would be checking their email, they'd be checking their private IM, maybe you have a corporate IM. They have to search there. By doing all this stuff in Chatter, they're searching the same way they would search for an account record, right? So I'm just basically going to search here, and I can find my chats. I can find my posts. I can find my files. I can find any kind of links that were shared with me, and I can still find my records, all using the same search. So that's one of those things that's like, is a very powerful feature over time as everybody starts collaborating with this. And desktop is not necessarily for everybody, but some users really like to see these things as they occur. If you don't use Chatter Desktop, excuse me, you'll also receive these updates. You can receive a daily update every night from Salesforce where it tells you every single thing that occurred. Or you can, if you're one of those users that's just constantly in Salesforce like myself, you basically can see the same stuff right from your feed. So it just gives you a different option. In addition to Chatter Desktop, I can't show it right now, but you also have Chatter Mobile. So for Chatter Mobile, you can do it on your smartphone, or you can do it on your tablet, so your iPad or an Android tablet, where you can log in and be able to see the same type of information here, and basically participate in the Chatter feed and view the Chatter feed all directly from a mobile device. So those are all great tools to sort of help basically people to adopt it and to be able to participate further with Chatter. So we just talked a lot about best practices of how to roll it out, sort of different tips and tricks of pieces of functionality that you can do, and then also some of the different core pieces that you can roll out to your users. So now want to spend some time, about 10 minutes, talking about how you can extend Chatter. So there's a lot of really great apps out there that really sort of help out and leverage Chatter in great ways. So one of the first ones here, let me just go to a different opportunity, is this app called Chatter Swarm. And so basically with Chatter Swarm, the concept of Chatter Swarm is that, I'm going to go look at a case, actually I'm going to do the opportunity, so I'll flip it to the opportunity. So the concept of Chatter Swarm, is, and you can do it on cases, leads, or opportunities, is, so right now I have an opportunity and I have maybe the sales rep and their manager following it, and that's it. Well, what happens if something goes bad with this opportunity, right? And also it's like one of those all hands on deck kind of moments where it's just like, okay, this opportunity is at risk. This is a big one. I'm a little bit nervous about this, and I need people to help. Well, instead of actually having to go out and get those people, maybe like the VP or sales, or maybe like sort of the product evangelist that should be involved in this, I might have to swoop in to sort of like convince them on your messaging. You can use this app called Chatter Swarm. It's essentially like a rules engine. Where you can set up what the criteria is, right? So if I have an opportunity here that's over $10,000, and those are our rules, and I flip it to at risk, and I hit OK, and I hit save, suddenly 6 people are now following this opportunity on Chatter, and they're automatically added to the feed, and essentially like they're swarmed to that opportunity. And the concept there is suddenly all these people would be notified that they've been swarmed to this opportunity, so they know something's up. So, okay, like, this opportunity is at risk, like everybody get involved. And then they can start collaborating on the plan to attack this opportunity. You could do the same thing on cases, right? So maybe you have a case where, if a customer goes down, like where you have an online product and maybe like, they're having performance issues and they're actually down. As soon as a critical case is logged where there's downtime, immediately you have a Chatter Swarm around that case. And all the engineers, the Tier 2 and Tier 3 engineers, are automatically added to that case so they can follow what's going on. And not only do you, where this is like a really powerful tool from the Swarm standpoint, is not only are they following what's going on and added there to start collaborating, but you think about what happens today in those kind of situations, right? An opportunity is at risk. Usually the sales guy is sending out, or a customer's down. Usually an email is firing out. You have tons of people replying to these emails, going left and right, tripping over each other, because this is happening all fast. And they're replying to it while other people are replying at the same time. So now your emails are sort of out of stream. In addition, you probably have some upper management, SVP, or maybe even a CEO who's not really adding a ton of value to fixing the problem, but sure wants to know what the heck is going on with the problem. Peppering every single person that's involved constantly, like, I need an update, I need an update, I need an update, which isn't helping the situation, but you can't not respond to them because they're pretty high up. So you add them to the feed as well, and instead of peppering you, they can actually just go right to the record and see what's going on directly inside the Chatter feed. So it's helping you collaborate, but it's also helping to notify those higher level executives that need to know what's going on, just so they're they're kept informed, without them sort of disrupting the process of trying to fix whatever caused the swarm. So there's sort of a dual benefit on these swarms, and we've seen this used really effectively on the customer service side in particular. So if something goes down, suddenly you're swarming with Tier 2 engineers. You could even swarm the sales rep onto it. All right, we have a critical case at this customer. We just want to let the sales rep know that there's a critical case. We don't want him in the way because we got to fix it, but we want him to know and be aware and be able to see the updates. But don't email every single one of us every 5 minutes while we're trying to fix this thing, right? And so it's a great way to get people involved that aren't necessarily trying to fix it. So Chatter Swarm is an Appexchange app. It's free, and like I said, right, the standard app goes on opportunities, cases, and leads, and you can set up these rules and any kind of criteria that you want. And we've seen a lot of great success on this, and it's an awesome way to proactively add people to those records based on different alerts. And one thing just to mention is when we're done with this with the webinar, we're going to send out a link to the recording. We'll include all these links to these Appexchange apps that we're talking about, just so that you guys can this way you guys can find them if you want to install them. So that's Chatter Swarm, terrific app. Another one is Chatter Blacklist. So this one is a little bit interesting, where there's sort of two uses for Chatter Blacklist. So first, if you are a healthcare or a finance company, by law you have to log all of these Chatter exchanges, because basically they're an electronic communication. So they're no different than an email, they're no different than an IM. And so you need to log all this stuff. So there's an app to log all your chatter and make sure all that stuff is compliant with those laws. But maybe you don't want people posting with stuff that's being logged inappropriate information, right? So maybe you want to proactively block those kind of things. Even companies that don't have to log all this stuff, just from a pure HR standpoint, maybe you don't want somebody insulting somebody or dropping an F-bomb in your chatter stream, right? I mean, this is your corporate system. You don't want those type of things happening. So there's an app called Chatter Blacklist where you can block certain words. So you can just be like John is a jerk. I hit share, and it automatically blocks that word from happening. You can also configure this, and I'll show you the configuration. So right here, this is sort of the app, and here's the words that we're blocking. So we have jerk blocked, we have idiot blocked, dummy, loser, some words that you don't necessarily want people throwing around inside your chatter stream. And if I go into these, you can see you have a few options here where you can audit it. So basically when it happens, it automatically flags this and shows like, hey, so-and-so just did this, and I'll show you that one in a second. You can also completely block the post if you want. Instead of putting out stars, like we substituted jerk with stars, if you wanted to, you can actually block the post entirely. Where basically if someone has those type of words, like you don't even put them in. In a finance company, maybe it's like a stock symbol, right? Like where you can't have people posting about, if you're a public company, you don't want people talking about your stock over like the chatter feed, right? So maybe you block any post where someone's mentioning your symbol. So there's lots of different ways you can do that. And if I go into the blacklist audit and I go to a view, you can see all of the, basically these are the ones that were audited, right? So you can see today at 10/14 that basically this Sasha Fashion user used the word jerk and it logged it, right? So you can basically log all these cases where those words occurred. And it's probably not an app that fits for most for every company, but from an HR standpoint, and then also from definitely if you are a company that needs to record all electronic communications, so either healthcare or finance, this is a great app, and it helps with all those type of things. And some companies, when you start rolling this out, HR might be a little bit concerned that someone might use it for some improper type of communications. This is a good way to sort of get HR on board as well, going, all right, well, what if we provided you with an app where you can control what type of words can be posted or what phrases, those type of things. So great idea from that type of standpoint. Again, it's another free app on the Appexchange. Another one is this app called Chatter Unfollow. So one of the things that starts to happen, especially as you're really adopting Chatter, is people start winding up following a lot of records, right? And maybe you don't want to follow records all the time, right? So a good example is if I have a case where I don't want to follow it once it's closed, right? So why would I want to follow a case that's closed, right? It's already been closed out. There's really no more updates that I care about anymore. Or maybe I'm a sales manager that just wants to follow, I don't want to follow opportunities that are like at like a super early stage. I only want to follow late opportunities. So, so you can basically set up these rules, Chatter Unfollow rules, where you would just pick the objects. So if I want cases, I'm going to go here, and if I'm going to show all my fields, and I'm going to look at my status, and I'm going to like, all right, I want to unfollow anything that equals closed, right? And what you can do is you can set a delay. So maybe if it's a closed case, I want to follow it for 5 more days just in case it opens back up. But so I don't want to not follow it right away. I want to unfollow it 5 days later, or maybe I do want to unfollow it right away. You can set that criteria. You hit save, and then when this rule occurs, it's going to automatically take you off of the follow for that, right? So really good tool especially for the admins to sort of do these global unfollows for their users, right? Instead of having to have the users select and unselect records as they go, well, there's some basic sets of stuff that you can get rid of right out of the gate using Chatter Unfollow. So great app, and again, another free one. And our last free one is a Chatter usage dashboard. So this is, again, another free app that's on the Appexchange. And this is a free dashboard. Basically, Salesforce created this with a bunch of dashboards you'll see right here. And these are just basically reporting on your Chatter usage, right? So I can see my top 10 followers and how many times they've posted, my groups, all my different feeds and what type of posts are going, right? What are my most popular groups? What are my most popular feeds? Who are my biggest users, my most people who contribute the most? Who's commenting the most, right? So it's a great sort of social dashboard to give you a concept of who your top adopters are, who your best users are, and who's really collaborating and sort of expressing all the different information and stuff that they need inside of Chatter. And that ties to my last point here is when I look at a user. So if I go and click into my profile here, you can see this influencer chart, right? So this is based on that dashboard I just showed you. And you can see sort of what their stats are. So this user's posted 19 times. They've received 2 comments. 2 people liked their comments. And you can see that they're one of the top influencers in the company. So this keeps track of this stuff real time as everybody's collaborating. And you can, with those dashboards and sort of with this at the user level, you can see who your best users are and who's really adopting the system. So we only have an hour, so wanted to go. I know I went a little bit faster some of that stuff, but really a lot of topics to cover, and we wanted to give you a pretty broad understanding of Chatter. I want to save the last 10 minutes for questions, so I'm going to go start checking to see if there's any questions that have come in, or if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask them through the chat now. So let's open up the last 10 minutes. Deborah, has anybody posted anything?
Yeah, we do have one.
Does anybody want to post any questions?
I do have one question and then a comment. So if you can talk about Chatterbox.
Okay.
At all?
So Chatterbox is coming. So just a full disclosure here, we're a partner of Salesforce. We don't work for Salesforce. So we don't really have that much more of an sort of an inside track than a lot of the key customers of Salesforce. So what I'm saying right now is just sort of some of the stuff I've seen. But basically, Chatterbox is going to essentially is a little bit of think of it like Dropbox, but for Salesforce, where you can subscribe to files and attachments that belong either to a Chatter group or belong to a record inside of Salesforce. So if I have a Chatter group that has 9 files that are really key, so I'm in my Spring 13 preview here, and I need to be able to there's all these different color palettes and diagrams and stuff about the fashion line. I need to be able to keep those up to date. Chatterbox will let you sync that with your desktop, right? So similar to Dropbox, you'll be able to sync these records from your Chatter group or your records right to your desktop. So in a way, it's almost like a little bit of an offline version of Salesforce for files, and also to let you sort of be able to keep syncing all this type of stuff with different groups. And then you can update those files from your so if you have a PowerPoint deck that's here and you make an update and it's synced, it's it's going to go back and forth with that Chatter group and put up a new version and all that. So we haven't actually seen Chatterbox in action. I believe it's coming out with the next release, or at least parts of it is. It's definitely coming in the next few from everything that Salesforce has been talking about, but I don't have specific dates. But I mean, from what we've seen, it's actually a very cool app, and it's really going to extend out, especially file type of information in Salesforce. I mean, some of the screenshots we've seen, it's very, very slick, and we're really excited to see what Salesforce does with that.
Okay, a couple others. You talked about the Chatter unfollow, but is there a way to mass subscribe to Chatter feeds?
Yep. So I'm not 100% sure if there's an Appexchange app that lets you do that, but Chatter is very similar to the rest of Salesforce, where it's built on the Force.com platform. So all the tables are accessible, using normal Apex and Visualforce and all those type of things. So, we do this even ourselves internally at Gears. So basically, when a case is created for, so if we have a project manager that owns an account, and that's their account, if a case is created by our customer success team because something's going on with that account, we have the project manager for that account automatically assigned to Chatter to follow the Chatter. So, there may be an Appexchange app, and that's something I'll look into to see if there's something that does that automatically right out of a box with an app. But if not, it's absolutely something you can do with a very simple Apex trigger where you can have different criteria to automatically add people to follow.
Okay, and any tips or suggestions on using Chatter within the Service Cloud?
Yeah, so Service Cloud, we talked about, one of the biggest things that we see out there is Chatter Swarm for sure. So if you have a critical case or a high priority case, that's definitely a great thing to sort of, or even just like an escalation. It's a great way to use Chatter to get people involved in a case that aren't necessarily on that case team, but you need to get them on the team. We also see a lot of in the Service Cloud. A great use is just to get sort of sales off of your back. I mean, if most support organizations, they're going to have salespeople peppering them all the time, like, hey, I have a call with this customer, and I see that you have a high priority case here. Like, what's going on with this case? That's pretty disruptive to a support team who's on the phone and taking calls while they're also trying to handle internal users basically reaching out to them. Well, a great way to sort of pull that back a little bit is the salesperson can just follow the case through Chatter, right? And so instead of having to reach out to you, they're going to receive updates proactively through Chatter. Then I'd say another big use that we see in the Service Cloud is sort of similar to that overlay thing that we were talking about, where especially on if a case is escalated to Tier 2 or maybe to Tier 3, or maybe this case is about a feature release or a bug. It's not even it's not even like sort of a support issue. It actually needs to go to a different group. Chatter is a great way to have those different groups collaborate on the case, right? Where you're looking at the issue, you can reproduce it. You're not 100% sure, like, is this a bug or is this like actually like a feature, a new feature that we would have to roll out? You could pull in somebody from marketing, or you could pull in somebody from your Tier 3 team, and then discuss that case, see what it is. All that history is maintained there, so that when you assign that to marketing to say, hey, this is a feature release, they understand why this case was passed to them, because they can see the whole discussion between you and engineering of how that occurred. So, in a way, we look at that almost like that overlay concept, but I mean, we see a lot of good stuff with that as well. Any others, Deborah?
We did just have a follow-up on why you would use Chatterbox versus content, or how and why.
So one of the so again, we haven't really got our hands on this, but one of the big reasons you would use it instead of content, it's actually going to sync with your local computer, right? So think of it almost like as an offline version, sort of like Dropbox, where you're going to be able to, if there's 15 files in a group that you need to always have at your fingertips, maybe you're not going to be online all the time. Those files you can sync with your desktop. Where content, you have to be within Salesforce to get to that. And the other difference between Chatterbox and content is Chatterbox is going to be, basically topical to a record or to a group, where content's is more like a library type of function, right? Like, so here's all my marketing collateral, right? And it's going to be in a folder, and you're going to be able to go into content and grab that. Well, if you want to know every single thing that you want to know all the files that are relevant to a customer record, you can sync with just that record and have those files transferring back and forth. Or I want to just sync. I want to be keep track of everything that's tied to this group. So it's a much more focused kind of sync than just content would be. But I do also, and again, I don't know for sure, but I also think there's something where Chatterbox, I think, also ties into content, where there's going to be, probably some kind of sync there as well. So, basically, Chatterbox is going to be a little bit of the sync to the whole file strategy of Salesforce.
Okay, and then we had one comment from Joseph D'Souza, who says, seeing you walking around in those blue Sensible shoes would be quite the sight.
Thanks, Joe. I knew that would be the sight. Hopefully, that's not something that ever gets chattered as a picture. All right. Well, so I think that's it. So again, just to wrap up, first of all, thanks everybody for coming. We had a really good turnout. We're really excited about that. This is the second one that we've done. First one we did was about advanced reporting. So we're going to probably do this once a quarter and try to get topics that really sort of impact everybody. and just sort of walk through some of the tips and tricks that we've seen. We're going to get out the recording of this and all the links and things that we talked over, and we'll get that all onto a blog post on our site. Mail that to all of you guys so that you can get at it. And as always, if anybody has any kind of questions or you want to follow up or stuff, or if you even want to some help putting these things in, feel free to reach out to us. And if you don't actually know us yet, you can email support@GearsCRM.com, and one of our member of our team will definitely jump on and help you out. But hopefully this was valuable for everybody, and you got a lot out of different ways you can extend Chatter. Thanks.